I feel an enormous sympathy for her because I feel that she was a victim of her time.
Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're discussing times British executions led to mass outrage.
The Derek Bentley case is one of the most tragic and staining cases in the history of our criminal justice system.
Lady Jane Grey.
Are you Protestant? Are you vaguely related to Henry VIII? Is your name Lady Jane Grey? Then you've won our star prize, and you're going to experience what it's like to be Queen for 9 days.
Her nickname, the 9 Days Queen, provides a strong hint at how successful her reign was. After the death of Henry VIII, his will stated Lady Grey would inherit the throne after her cousins.
Day 1, we set you up in royal apartments at the Tower of London to await your coronation.
Ooh, this is nice. I could get used to this.
I don't think so.
Henry's son, Edward VI, decided to move Grey further up in the succession, making her queen after his death.
Day 2, we throw in a crown for free. Go on, try it on for size.
Okay, what harm can it do?
You'll find that out on day 9.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Unfortunately for Jane, Edward's half-sister Mary didn't approve of the change.
Day 3, it's coronation time. Now you're the queen. You get to go out and meet your public. They don't even know who you are.
We don't even know who she is.
They were expecting a different person to be queen.
We were expecting a different person to be queen.
Mary became queen and at first spared her opponent's life. Sadly, Grey's father then got involved in a rebellion and Mary became fearful. So Jane was convicted of treason and tragically beheaded in February 1554, still just a teenage girl.
And this fantastic offer ends in true Tudor style with a visit to the executioner.
I never wanted to be queen in the first place.
William Wallace.
I'm so afraid. Give me the strength. I will.
In Scotland, William Wallace is a national treasure, famous for his heroic fights against the English in the First War of Scottish Independence. His reputation is completely different down south, as contemporary English records claim he committed atrocities against civilians. Now those actions would be considered war crimes.
Now behold the awful price of treason! Oh, fall to your knees now.
It's unclear whether he truly did these horrific deeds or if it was simply English propaganda, making it a contentious execution.
Rope!
Wallace was hanged, drawn and quartered for treason in the end. He denied both charges, with the treason one being most questionable, since he'd never sworn fealty to the English crown. James Pratt and John Smith.
What was extraordinary for me was that these were two working class men. Nobody had been hanged at Newgate for more than 2 years at all. Lots of other people had got away with sex between men, including 2 members of Parliament in 1833, just 2 years prior.
Sadly, sodomy was punishable by death in England for centuries. The last 2 people executed for this were James Pratt and John Smith, who lost their lives in 1835. The landlord of an elderly man named William Boleyn became concerned after noticing he had a lot of men visit.
But these 2 men were hanged.
And you think the class was a crucial factor?
Undoubtedly. In fact, the magistrate who referred them or committed them for trial at the Old Bailey wrote to seek a reprieve for them once they'd been sentenced to death.
After Smith and Pratt appeared at his home one night, the landlord went snooping with his wife, then supposedly saw them making love with one another. Police were quickly called and all 3 were arrested.
Saying, listen, this is the only crime in the country where rich people can carry on because they can afford to pay for privacy, whereas poor men can't.
And you've got this phrase, it takes a whole country to hang a man.
Boleyn avoided a death sentence as he was away when the landlord burst in, but was still sent to Australia. The landlord gave a highly questionable testimony, leading the pair to be executed despite describing some literally impossible acts.
Well, and the hangman himself sold bits of the noose. I mean, that was a common part of what people did, and people thought that it had special powers to save you from illness and so on.
Anne Boleyn.
Having been found unanimously guilty. I'll do slaughter!
Almost any child educated in the UK knows the fate of Henry VIII's 6 wives. One of the most famous was Anne Boleyn, his second wife, who was executed for treason in 1536.
Why does she keep looking up at the tower?
Because she thinks there's still hope.
Well, it was mainly because she hadn't given Henry a male heir. So he decided he wanted to marry Jane Seymour instead.
Good Christian people, I am come hither to die. For according to the law, and by the law, I am judged to die.
Killing her was simpler than a divorce. Also, it would have been embarrassing after spending 7 years trying to divorce Catherine, only to leave Boleyn after 3. Historians generally believe the crimes she was accused of were fabricated, implying she died mainly so the king could save face.
Put your arm down. Put your arm down.
Apportez l'épée.
Gwynne Evans and Peter Allen. In 1964, John Allen West was horrifically murdered in his home after Gwynne Evans and Peter Allen broke in to burgle him. In the following trial, both blamed each other, leading the judge to give them both the death penalty. They had botched defenses, like Evans randomly talking about not having a knife before any mention of West being stabbed. While they were probably guilty of the crime, it was scandalous as the death penalty was suspended in 1965, 15 months later. This makes the pair pretty unlucky, but not as unlucky as John West, making it hard to feel that sorry for them. Mahmood Hussein Mattan.
They convicted the wrong man and hung him for it.
Another pivotal case leading to the abolishment of the death penalty was that of Mahmood Mattan. In 1952, he was incorrectly found guilty of murder, which disturbingly led to his hanging.
My grandfather was picked up because he was a Somali immigrant. He couldn't speak much English. One of them, who should have been defending him, called him a semi-civilized savage. The police withheld a lot of the evidence.
He was originally from Somaliland, present-day Somalia, and worked as a seaman, which led him to Wales.
So the day he was taken down to be hung, he still told them, "You've got the wrong man." It's not just one life they took. 3 sons then went through the stigma of their father being a murderer.
The trial was a shambles, to put it mildly, with him losing his life primarily because of a single witness.
If his father wasn't killed, hung for the murder that he didn't commit, then I'd essentially still have a dad today.
Since his death, it's become clear that he was innocent, leading his family to be awarded £725,000 in compensation, and eventually South Wales Police apologised for the catastrophic failure.
That must have been a great feeling for Laura, my grandmother, my dad and his 2 brothers. They were given compensation, which my dad referred to it as blood money.
Derek Bentley.
It started as a night of petty theft involving 2 teenagers, but ended up with the murder of a police officer, with Derek Bentley hanging for the crime.
In 1953, Bentley became a victim of a horrific injustice after becoming an accomplice to murder. He was only 19 years old when he and Christopher Craig broke into a Croydon warehouse.
Bentley's failure to be accepted into society left him frustrated. He found himself mixing with the wrong sort of company.
Police were tipped off about the robbery, so they arrived and tried to detain the pair. Craig then pulled out a gun, and according to some witnesses, they asked him to hand it over.
When he was 18, Bentley made friends with Christopher Craig. He was 3 years younger than Bentley, and they both had the same learning difficulty. They were illiterate.
Then Bentley shouted, "Let him have it." According to the defense, he was telling him to give the gun, but the prosecution said he was encouraging him to open fire, which is what Craig did. He was sentenced to death without even pulling the trigger of the gun that killed PC Sidney Miles. An officer died and the pair were found guilty. Craig was too young to get the death penalty, but Bentley sadly wasn't.
At 9 a.m. on the 28th of January 1953, a crowd of around 500 gathered outside Wandsworth Prison and sang "The Lord is my shepherd and abide with me." Derek William Bentley, aged just 19, had been hanged.
Ruth Ellis.
In 1955, a murder was committed outside this pub at Hampstead in London. The victim was David Blakely, and what made his killing so shocking was that his attacker had been his lover, Ruth Ellis.
The last woman in Britain to be executed was Ruth Ellis in 1955. She lived a pretty sad life, getting treated terribly by countless unpleasant men.
Even today, the murder Ruth committed and the punishment she received divides public opinion. Her name remains in the history books as the last woman to be hanged in Britain.
Ellis eventually snapped and shot David Blakely, a lover of hers who was engaged to someone else. It only took the jury 20 minutes to convict her after the prosecutor asked her only one question.
Her trial would last only 2 days and proved to be one of the most controversial in British legal history.
It was scandalous because it ignored her decades of history being severely victimized by men, reflective of attitudes towards women in the 50s. For example, she was once punched in the stomach by Blakely, which led to her miscarrying.
At 9 a.m. on the 13th of July 1955, prisoner number 9656 was taken to the gallows. Ruth Ellis was hanged for the murder of David Blakely.
Charles I of England.
Charles Stuart, King of England, you stand before this court charged with high treason.
King Charles is most famous for the huge part he played in kickstarting the English Civil War. He didn't like Parliament limiting his power, so he dissolved Parliament not once, but 4 times in total. These decisions led to a civil war between the Royalists and the Parliamentarians, which Charles famously lost. Then a second kicked off in 1648, which he also lost, leading to him being found guilty of treason and executed in 1649.
Well, gentlemen, are you afraid to kill your king with an open face?
You could easily argue that it was the most historically significant trial in English history, which led to the dissolution of the monarchy.
I go now from a corruptible to an incorruptible crown, to everlasting peace.
Well, in name at least, Oliver Cromwell became Lord Protector of the Commonwealth, then went on to dissolve Parliament 3 times himself. Timothy Evans.
Timothy John Evans, the court has found you guilty of wilful murder. And the sentence of the court upon you is that you be taken from this place to a lawful prison, and thence to a place of execution.
The murders of John Christie are so famous that they've been dramatized multiple times in the decades since his capture. He killed at least 8 individuals at his home in Rillington Place, London, then hid their bodies in and around the property. Christie nearly got away with it after framing his neighbor, Timothy Evans, for 2 of these murders, which were Evans' wife and daughter. Christie was a massive factor in finding Evans guilty, leading to his hanging in 1950. After people learned Christie had orchestrated the ordeal, a campaign to overturn his conviction began, and it eventually played a major role in ending capital punishment.
You're Christie. John Reginald Christie. I shall have to take you into custody.
Were there any more noteworthy cases we didn't mention today? Let us know in those comments below.